Now I have Louie, and Louie's really sweet. Right, Louie? Say hi. Say hi to all those magic people. Hi, Louie.
Oh, Louie,
you can tell,
bashful. He seems a little bashful.
You can tell they're in the camel family. They look a lot like camels. And alpaca. They're from the same family. They're really sweet animals.
I see he's been with you in quite a few pictures in cameras and magazines and so forth.
Yes, I think the fans and the kids know him from the picturing thing.
Have you heard the magazine worth listening to? Tell us you're listening. Tell them you're listening. It's time to rethink the way we treat animals.
Small Caribbean island. It's got sun, sea, and, so they say, a beach for every day of the year. Antigua seems like paradise. It certainly is for the tourists, and they give jobs and money to the locals. But beneath the glittering surface is another story. The story of the problems tourism can bring a poor country.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel here. It's me here, Comrade Lavender here, and today I'm back with another anti-capitalism, true crime, deep dive YouTube video topic. Today I want to talk about an animal true crime case that happened in the late 80s, early 90s. Today I want to talk about the pure evil, the failed investor plan that planned to bring llamas into the United States in the pet industry and in the animal agriculture industry. A failed investor plan leaves llamas and the victims of capitalism, aka the llamas, being unalived and left on an island. Deep dive, capitalism, the pet trade, animal agriculture, private property disputes, true crime, etc. So let's get started on this YouTube video topic. But before we get started, all my YouTube videos that are related to this topic, all my other animal YouTube video topics that are related to this topic, other YouTube videos I've done about other animal true crime cases are going to be on the screen right now. So let's get started on this YouTube video topic. A dispute on a Caribbean island leaves llamas dying in hot sun. Back in the late 1980s through the early 1990s, thousands of miles from their native home in the cool mountains of South America, a herd of woolly llamas and alpacas were stranded on a Caribbean island and were slowly dying from heat and stress in the broiling hot sun. The gentle, long-necked llamas and alpacas, distant cousins of the camel and guanaco, were shipped here by American capitalist pig investors who had hoped to sell them and make a profit in the United States for about $30,000 each as pets. That's how much they wanted to sell them for. Pack animals for hikers and breeding stock for the animal agricultural industry in a skyrocketing market. A skyrocketing hot market. But when a group of local people feuding with the Antigua government and angry at one of the Americans blocked access to a quarantine station, the animals were left shunned to a barren chunk of coral rock and scrub bush off the coast of Antigua, where there is little shade and no fresh water. They've never even seen a tree. The Americans left Chile with 268 llamas and alpacas. By then, only 179 llamas were still left and alive. The rest had passed away and died, including the last survivor of what had been a group of 20 nursing alpacas and llama mothers. We're losing about 2 per day, said Francie Stull, a Russian wolfhound breeder from Texas who contracted to buy 160 of the animals for $1.2 million and has already resold 49 of them for $500,000. These animals are born and raised above the tree line at 14,000 feet. Miss Stull says, they've never seen a tree and they don't know how to seek shade. We spent all day getting them and running them into the shade, and there's very little shade to run them into. A small shaded area in the Antigua government is offering no suggestions on what to do with the animals, and Americans say they're at a loss, since the original reason to quarantine them was concern that they might be carrying foot and mouth disease. Experts say it's unlikely that any country would permit their entry. Each day the sun climbs towards the earth. The docile animals huddle silently, staring vaguely into the shrub brush and the sparkling Caribbean Sea. When the temperatures hit 102 degrees, we move them to infirmary, Stull said, indicating a small shaded area covered by a blue plastic tarpaulin with intravenous bottles and tubes dangling from a tree limb. Some experts have recommended shearing the animals, but Miss Stull said some of the first to pass away were those whose coats had been sheared and thinned. Planned for a wildlife park is the last decade, llamas have become a trendy pet in the United States and in the pet trade. The International Llama Association in Denver estimates that there are about 25,000 in the country as of the late 1980s and early 1990s. Michael Jackson had one. Kim Novick and Dennis Weaver bred them. According to the association, llamas were reportedly kept near the home of Abby Hoffman, who passed away. Some female llamas have sold for as much as $80,000, the association said, and a prize stud llama recently bought for over $115,000 at auction. Miss Kerr had heard there was money to be made in llamas, and he persuaded Mr. Strickland that with 2 plane loads of animals they could raise $2 million funds or so pay for the wildlife park and the quarantine station. They both insist they were not looking for profit, but merely wanted the pleasure of displaying these animals. Out of some vacillation on where to put the 2 installations, the government suggested the neighboring island of Barbuda, a nearly deserted place about 10 minutes by air from Antigua with about 1,200 residents and a wild, unspoiled beauty. The 2 islands became the independent nation of Antigua Barbuda in 1981. Last November, Antigua notified Barbuda of Mr. Strickland's plans. Barbuda protested, and according to Barbadians and the central government official, the government agreed to shelve the projects. The Barbadians have been quarreling with Mr. Strickland for years. To them, he has been the main figure in a company that has been exporting the island's sand for use in construction and paying the Barbadians only a fraction of what they think it's worth. On March 23rd, a barge loaded with llamas and alpacas arrived to Barbuda. A crowd quickly formed, blocking the landing. The Barbadians say they fear disease, but they also decided to take a stand against Antigua and Mr. Strickland. Antigua sent police reinforcements, but eventually the Americans left with their llamas. Mr. Strickland said he and Miss Carr and 2 other American partners have lost several $100,000. There are some puzzling aspects to their enterprise. One is the Department of Agriculture said the quarantine station does not meet Washington standards and that the animals probably would have been rejected and not been permitted to enter the United States in any case. Another is that Mr. Strickland expressed surprise at Barbudans' rejection of the scheme and plot. Arjuda is faulted. He faults the Antigua government for authorizing the quarantine station and not forcing the Barbadians to back down. On Thursday, Mr. Bird's aide and the government had decided that the Americans can turn the barren island into a temporary quarantine station as they requested. The Americans said they never asked for that and that the idea was unacceptable. In the meantime, they started pulling up more tarpaulins for shade. Miss Stull said she just wanted to get the llamas off the little island to some place where we don't have to struggle for survival every single day. After languishing for more than a year as virtual castaways on the shrubby tropical island in the eastern Caribbean, the shaggy ruminants of a herd of llamas and alpacas from high slopes of the Andes may soon be rescued under a plan put together by the World Society for the Protection of Animals. Since Easter weekend 1989, when the scheme to import the animals into the United States went awry, they have lived on a diet of livestock food pellets, hay, and water brought several times a week from mainland Antigua by boat. When the furor over landing the animals died down, so did the local interest, but it revived with a jolt last spring when the Protection Society threatened to call for a tourist boycott of Antigua unless something was done. The threat struck a nerve. More than 70% of Antigua's gross national product derives from tourism industry. Although their future now looks brighter than it has in 17 months, the animals remain on Willy Island, where the owners and rescuers haggle over when and where to move them. And on the behalf of the Protection Society, of which Antigua will seize the creatures and Peru will accept them, leaving Kerr and his partners out in the cold, Kerr asserting his property rights, seeking to prevent the seizure. He said he found a European country which refused to identify. They'll take the animals into quarantine. He says that if given a little time to work out the details, we'll ship them there. Aside from the original cost of buying and flying the animals to Antigua, he said he has spent $1,500 a week for the past 17 months, paying feed bills, and hired a helping hand to tend to the herd. His group also put $250,000 into the ill-fated Barbuda quarantine facility, Kerr said. These animals are private property, he said. We can't abandon them now. If they go to Peru, they will go right to the slaughterhouse and have their necks cut off. O'Sullivan scoffed at that forecast. That's false, he said. Peru guarantees they'll be released into a park. He said that in Peru, the animals will be placed under quarantine for 40 days, during which they can begin to recover from the stress and the ordeal, then taken to a high-altitude llama refuge and animal sanctuary. The Protection Society also has pledged for half of the $90,000 it will cost to fly the animals to Peru. O'Sullivan said he's waiting for a written pledge from the government of Antigua, and it will be override Kerr's objections and seize the animals for shipment. Minister of Agriculture Hilroy Hermes, who's dealing with the llama crisis, said the only obstacle to acting immediately is Antigua's request for formal assurance from Peru that the creatures will not be slaughtered. Eventually, according to a source online, the Antiguan government, with the help of other organizations, worked to get the remaining llamas and alpacas back to Peru, their native habitat. I don't know what happened to this case. I'm assuming that they were able to get to Peru. There's not really that much information online or what happened exactly. But either way, it's been years since like the late 1980s. The llamas and the alpacas are probably dead by now. And, maybe they got to Peru. I don't know. There's not that much information online about it. But I wanted to cover this because I actually originally found out about this true crime case in the Animals Voice magazine, but I can't find the article, the PDF for that right now. But I originally found the story in that magazine, so I wanted to do a true crime video about this. So yeah, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Bye guys, see you in my next video.